We always desire what we cannot control. Lao Tzu. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. You tried everything. You were attentive. You gave her your time, your care, your energy. You showed her how much she means to you. And yet she started to pull away. She became distant, cold, unreachable. And you sit alone, trying to understand what you did wrong. It feels like a cruel joke. The more you give, the less you receive. The more you open your heart, the more she closes hers. And the pain grows deeper because you believe that love should work the opposite way, that devotion would bring closeness, that your sincerity would be rewarded. But it wasn't. Inside, there's this emptiness, a hollow space where connection used to be. The endless questions torture you. Was I too much? Was I not enough? What is wrong with me? And with every unanswered question, the self-doubt grows. But here's the truth: most won't tell you. You're not broken. You're not unworthy. You've simply fallen into a psychological mechanism that is older than any modern advice, any self-help book, any therapist's script. This is the paradox of love. The more emotionally dependent you become, the more she loses desire. The more you crave her presence, the more she feels trapped. It's not because she's cruel. It's not because you failed. It's because her mind, her biology, her unconscious instincts are wired to respond differently than you expect. Since ancient times, men who were emotionally stable, centered, and self-sufficient were the ones who attracted women. Not because they played games, but because they didn't collapse into emotional neediness. They stood on solid ground. They were not desperate to be chosen. And that energy, that strength, created a pull. When you place her at the center of your existence, you unintentionally signal weakness. You tell her nervous system that you cannot hold yourself together without her. And that creates anxiety, not attraction. Her primal brain starts to whisper, "If he cannot stand alone, how will he protect me, lead, or survive in chaos?" The harsh part is this: you thought you were showing love, but what you projected was dependency. And while your intentions were pure, the emotional reality was suffocating for her. By the end of this, you will understand why your pain holds the key, why your emptiness can become your greatest power, why she dreams of you when you no longer chase, and most importantly, how you can shift everything. Starting today, the paradox of love operates on an ancient code written deep inside her nervous system. It's not something she consciously controls, and it's not something you can fix by being kinder or more attentive. When you chase her, constantly seek reassurance, or make her the center of your emotional world, you trigger a biological mechanism that whispers danger to her subconscious mind. For thousands of years, a woman's survival depended on selecting a man who could lead, protect, and remain calm under pressure. Emotional self-sufficiency was a signal of strength. Emotional dependence was a signal of weakness. This isn't about modern romantic ideals or fairy tales. It's about survival instincts that still govern her responses today. When you express excessive need, her body interprets it as instability. Her mind questions whether you are capable of navigating adversity. The man who clings signals a lack of internal stability, making her feel she must carry both her emotions and yours. That burden suffocates attraction and triggers her instinct to retreat. The harder you try to convince her of your love, the more pressure she feels to pull away. Your desperation communicates an unspoken message: "I cannot survive without you." That message undermines the very foundation of attraction. Attraction thrives on polarity. Masculine energy radiates stability, purpose, and direction. Feminine energy seeks to feel safe within that grounded presence. When you surrender your frame, chase her validation, or allow your emotions to spiral out of control, you reverse the polarity. She is forced into the masculine role of leading, reassuring, and stabilizing. This reversal creates internal friction within her, making her feel uneasy and disconnected. The more you push for closeness in these moments, the more her subconscious screams for distance. Biologically, her brain operates on a constant calculation of safety and security. When she senses that your emotional world depends on her reactions, her nervous system detects instability. This isn't a rational thought process. It's a gut-level response that bypasses logic entirely. She might even feel guilt or confusion about why she's pulling away, but the instinct remains. Your emotional dependency triggers her survival circuits. The chase becomes repelling rather than inviting. Modern culture tries to mask this truth with slogans about unconditional love and endless compromise. But beneath those surface-level narratives, ancient instincts continue to operate unchanged. The paradox remains brutally simple. The more you try to secure her love through neediness, the more she drifts away. The more you release the outcome and stand rooted in your own life, the more you become a gravitational force that pulls her in without effort. This is not manipulation. This is alignment with the biological and psychological laws that govern attraction. You must understand that her desire is not fueled by your sacrifices, but by your centered strength. Only when you stop chasing can true attraction emerge. And when you embody this, everything begins to shift. Attraction is not only emotional or psychological, it's deeply rooted in biology and chemistry. When you become emotionally needy, her nervous system enters a state of mild threat. The human brain evolved to associate unpredictability with excitement and predictability with safety. But too much emotional predictability from a man, especially when it stems from neediness, creates emotional stagnation. Her brain craves stimulation in the form of uncertainty, not the chaos of instability, but the tension of healthy mystery. The moment she knows you're fully dependent on her attention, the dopamine-driven reward system in her brain starts to shut down. Dopamine thrives on anticipation, not fulfillment. Once she feels that you're fully captured and constantly available, there's nothing left for her to pursue, and desire quietly fades. When you are fully present, but not desperate, you activate her primal attraction triggers. You become a challenge, not because you are playing games, but because you're whole within yourself. This triggers the chemical dance of dopamine and oxytocin in her system. She begins to crave your presence, seeking those moments of connection because they are no longer guaranteed. In this space, her mind starts to idealize you, to fantasize about your attention, because she senses that you are not easily conquered. Your independence becomes a magnet, pulling her towards you. This is why men who are busy building their lives often experience women chasing them without effort. Their focus on purpose over validation radiates a natural confidence that speaks directly to her unconscious needs. When you chase, her cortisol levels subtly rise. Stress chemicals activate, signaling her system that something is imbalanced. She feels pressure, even if you're being sweet and attentive. The pressure does not come from your actions alone, but from the invisible weight of your emotional dependency. Her body reads this as instability. In contrast, when you remain calm, detached, and self-sufficient, her cortisol lowers, and her body relaxes in your presence. Safety and attraction coexist when you embody internal strength without emotional volatility. This biological dynamic explains why women often lose interest after men express their devotion too intensely, too early. The imbalance shifts the emotional weight entirely onto her, forcing her to carry responsibility for both your emotional state and her own. Subconsciously, she begins to test you, not out of cruelty, but as a way to check whether you can hold your frame. These tests are instinctive safety checks, verifying your emotional resilience. Men who crumble under these tests validate her worst fears, while those who remain grounded amplify her desire. In every interaction, you are communicating much more than words. Your tone, your energy, your posture, all tell her whether you are centered or collapsing inside. Neediness leaks through your micro-behaviors. The urgency in your text messages, the constant need for reassurance, the over-explaining, the fear of silence. She feels it instantly, even if she can't consciously articulate it. What she truly desires is not your perfection, but your solidity. She craves the man who can remain unshaken, regardless of her emotional waves. This is the man who becomes her obsession, not because he withholds love, but because his love is not driven by fear. This paradox didn't emerge yesterday. Thousands of years ago, survival shaped these dynamics between men and women. In tribal societies, women needed to select men who could secure resources, protect the family, and remain composed under threat. Emotional instability in a man signaled danger. It meant unpredictability, poor leadership, and vulnerability. A man overly attached or emotionally dependent could not be trusted to make tough decisions when stakes were high. Women instinctively gravitated toward men who displayed calmness, control, and independence, not because they sought cold partners, but because their very survival depended on it. Even in modern society, these ancient instincts haven't disappeared. Technology changed the surface of relationships, but biology remains untouched. Today's world of instant messaging, social media, and constant connectivity amplifies emotional accessibility. Men flood women with texts, likes, compliments, and attention, believing it will strengthen the bond. In reality, this overexposure saturates her nervous system, leaving no space for anticipation, curiosity, or pursuit. When there is nothing left to chase, the brain's reward system shuts down, and desire fades silently. Back then, resources were food, shelter, and protection. Today, your primary resource is your attention, your energy, your mental stability. A man who gives all his attention freely and instantly signals emotional poverty. But a man who remains focused on his mission, who doesn't drop everything for fleeting emotional validation, radiates abundance. This abundance is not measured by external wealth, but by internal composure. Women subconsciously measure a man's worth not by his declarations, but by how grounded he remains in his own life. Modern dating culture misleads men into believing that more communication equals stronger connection. In reality, predictable, frequent, and needy communication suffocates feminine desire. The mystery, the unknown, and the subtle distance spark her imagination and emotional investment. Not knowing exactly where she stands creates space for her to engage, to lean in, to pursue. This controlled unpredictability is not manipulation. It's a reflection of authentic emotional independence. What worked thousands of years ago still works today because the core drivers of attraction haven't evolved. Women are drawn to men who offer stability without dependence, leadership without control, presence without desperation. When you embody these traits, you activate the same ancient instincts that once dictated survival. She feels safe, not because you constantly reassure her, but because your very presence radiates quiet confidence. This is the foundation of true masculine energy. At the core of female psychology lies a fundamental need for emotional security. But security doesn't come from your words or promises. It comes from sensing your internal strength. Women are not consciously testing men for sport or cruelty. These tests arise from ancient survival mechanisms, instinctively assessing whether a man can handle life's uncertainties. When a man remains calm and composed during these tests, he communicates deep stability. When he reacts emotionally, tries to explain himself excessively, or seeks validation, he communicates weakness. This is why many men unknowingly sabotage attraction by trying to solve her emotional storms instead of holding space for them. Women are naturally drawn to strength, not aggression, but unshakable emotional stability. They want to feel that no matter how turbulent their emotions become, you remain anchored. The man who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't get defensive or desperate, creates a sense of safety that words cannot replicate. This safety fuels her attraction because it assures her unconscious mind that you're capable of leading, protecting, and providing stability even during chaos. The nice guy approach, where a man bends over backwards to please and accommodate, often backfires. While kindness is valuable, excessive people-pleasing signals a lack of boundaries and internal emptiness. A man who sacrifices his standards, avoids conflict, and suppresses his true feelings to maintain harmony is not demonstrating strength. He's displaying fear of loss. Women may appreciate his efforts on the surface, but underneath, the attraction slowly withers. She begins to perceive him as emotionally fragile, someone who cannot stand firm when challenged. In contrast, the man who calmly maintains his boundaries, expresses his truth without aggression, and remains emotionally centered becomes deeply attractive. He demonstrates that his value doesn't depend on her approval. This independence triggers her desire to invest emotionally, to earn his attention, and to continually engage in the dynamic tension that sustains attraction. Women crave this polarity because it activates their feminine energy, allowing them to relax into their natural role of emotional expression while feeling safe in his grounded presence. This dynamic remains true across cultures and eras because it reflects the biological realities embedded in human nature. Masculine strength is not about dominating others, but about mastering oneself. When a man becomes the calm in her emotional storm, he becomes the anchor she instinctively seeks. This is the man she dreams about when he's not around. The man who lingers in her thoughts, not because he demands attention, but because his inner stability makes him unforgettable. If you want to break free from this destructive cycle and harness the paradox of love to your advantage, you need to adopt specific behaviors that realign your energy and transform how she perceives you. The first step is to stop projecting need. Neediness is not in your words, but in your energy, your subtle behaviors, and your internal dialogue. When you stop seeking her constant reassurance, when you detach your sense of self-worth from her responses, you send a clear signal of internal stability. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means you become emotionally self-sufficient. You are no longer chasing her validation to feel whole. Next, you must immerse yourself fully into your mission, your growth, and your personal development. Women are instinctively drawn to men who have a clear direction and purpose beyond the relationship. When your life is rich, filled with passions, goals, and pursuits that exist independently of her, you project abundance. She senses that being with you means being part of a powerful, forward-moving journey, not the sole source of your emotional fulfillment. This makes your presence more valuable and your attention more meaningful. You must also embrace the reality of potential loss. True power comes when you are fully at peace with the possibility that she may leave. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means your identity is not threatened by her decisions. When you release attachment to outcomes, you become fearless. Fearlessness is deeply attractive because it reflects strength, confidence, and control over your emotions. It shows her that you are not desperate, that you respect both her freedom and your own worth. Reduce unnecessary communication. Quality always trumps quantity. Stop over-explaining. Stop seeking constant connection. And allow space for her to miss you. This space creates emotional tension that fuels attraction. Every interaction should leave her wanting more, not feeling saturated. Let her initiate sometimes. When she reaches out, she feels invested. When you give her space, you allow her emotions to build naturally. Set clear boundaries and maintain them calmly. If she tests your limits with emotional outbursts or unreasonable demands, stay composed. Don't argue, don't collapse, and don't become defensive. Boundaries demonstrate that you respect yourself. She may initially resist, but deep down, she will feel safer knowing you can hold firm. This stability provides the emotional safety she subconsciously craves. Work on your internal state daily. Practice physical grounding through breathwork, cold exposure, or physical training. Strengthen your nervous system so that you can stay calm under pressure. Emotional resilience is built through discomfort. When you train yourself to remain steady during stress, you naturally radiate calmness in your interactions with her. Finally, understand that her emotional tests are not attacks. They are instinctive checks for your strength. When you recognize these moments as opportunities to demonstrate your grounded nature, you shift the dynamic completely. She stops feeling the need to test because she feels the deep security your presence offers. This is the path to becoming the man she dreams of, not because you manipulate, but because you embody true masculine energy. The final piece that ties everything together is emotional detachment training. It's not enough to understand these principles intellectually. You must condition your nervous system to embody them. One of the most effective practices is controlled exposure to discomfort, both emotional and physical. Begin by deliberately sitting with your emotional impulses instead of reacting. When you feel the urge to text her for reassurance, pause. Let the urge rise. Observe it without judgment and allow it to pass. Each time you resist the compulsion to seek validation, you strengthen your emotional muscles. In parallel, incorporate cold exposure into your routine. Whether it's cold showers or ice baths, the practice of staying calm under physical discomfort rewires your nervous system. You teach your body that it can remain composed under stress. This directly translates into your emotional world. When she tests you, when uncertainty arises, your system no longer panics. You remain grounded because you've trained your body to stay calm in discomfort. This combination of internal observation and physical discipline creates a powerful foundation of unshakable confidence. You're no longer controlled by fear of loss or emotional volatility. Instead, you project steady, calm leadership. This presence is what makes you unforgettable. She feels safe, drawn in, and deeply connected, not because you've said the right things, but because you radiate unspoken strength. This is how you become the man she dreams of, when you're no longer chasing, but simply living from your center. If this video changed something inside you, write in the comments, "I embrace my shadow." We're sure you've discovered plenty of value, so subscribe now and stay connected.